Okay. Hello and welcome. Thank you all for being here on this Thursday. I'm Nick Kanoki, and today we are going to hear from Mike Bordenaro, Lindsay Ziegler, and Stephen Holland. Before we get underway, I just want to thank our sponsors. We have our organizational members, and then our patron sponsors, ABS Quality Evaluations and Onuma System. This month, ABS Quality Evaluations is our sponsor for this ALN Thursday at 4 program. And so let me just say a few things about ABS. ABS Group provides comprehensive engineering and risk management solutions that support safer, more reliable assets and operations for multiple international markets. It was recently named to the Forbes list of America's best management consulting companies and is launching a suite of services to assist organizations reach ISO 55001 certification. Through its subsidiary, ABS Quality Evaluations, the company follows ISO and IEC 17021 accreditation requirements for certification bodies to ensure a separation of consulting and certification services. Last month, ABS Quality Evaluations was audited by the ANSI National Accreditation Board, who recommended continuous accreditation towards 11 ISO management system standards, including ISO 55001. Through its combined offerings and business assurance models, ABS is well qualified to assist private organizations, institutions, and government improve their overall business performance by identifying and reducing risks, building trust in the marketplace, ensuring quality of products or services are meeting expectations, and improving overall mission success. To see more, visit abs-group.com and abs-qe.com. And with that, I will just say we'd love to hear from you. So if you're out there watching, please put any questions or comments in the chat or the Q&A function of this Zoom webinar, and I'll pass it off to Mike Bordenaro.
Who needed to unmute himself. So sorry for that delay. We've got a very special presentation today. It's our first Thursday at 4 panel, and we're going to be talking about the concept of establishing a profession called asset management or property management. There's been a lot of talk about that in a recent paper, and it's something that Steve Holland has been interested in, and it's something that Lindsay Ziegler has been supporting. So before we start talking, let me say a few things about our guests. Steve Holland is the principal of logistics and property management at the Logistics Management Institute. He is an ALN A55K professional certification owner. He's certified professional property manager and a certified federal fleet specialist and a consulting fellow at the National Property Management Association, where he is currently serving as the Director of Legislative Affairs. And Lindsay is a principal with the Andrew James Advisory Group. She runs the training for the ALN A55 Professional Certification Training. See the connection here? She has extensive experience in consulting for financial management and business management, and has a master's from Duke, where she earned top honors. And personally, I can say it's a pleasure working with her. So let's start by talking with Steve. Steve introduced this concept of having a federal occupational career service for property management. Steve, what's your thoughts behind that?
Mike, thank you for the opportunity. My thoughts behind that are I realized that there were really two federal occupational series that were relating to property. That was the GS 1103 and 1104, which are industrial property management specialists for the 1103 and the plant clearance officer for 1104. But that's
what was that? What kind of clearance officer?
Plant clearance.
Plant clearance. Okay.
It's regarding disposal. And that is really related to government property that's in the possession of a contractor, where the government officials that are 1103s or 1104s, they're working with the contractors. The 1103s are performing the property management system analysis of the contractor's property operations, and the plant clearance officer is working with the contractors to review their plant clearance schedules and provide disposal instructions on what they're to do with the government property that is owned by DOD, because
But
those.
that's not a very holistic approach to property management. It's just the tail end.
That's correct. And it only relates to government property in the possession of contractors. So the holistic view would be to also cover what government property is in the possession of federal agencies, and having an occupational career series that would support an agency property officer, an accountable property officer, a property management officer, and a custodial property officer, so that they're all working together on a particular agency's property program. And that way you have the right people in the right classifications with the right competencies to do the job, as opposed to a federal officer being delegated the responsibility for a property management role, and that person not having the technical competencies for the position. And
For the record, Steve, will you tell us what an occupational career service means? And if this designation does eventually happen, what is the implication of that?
well, I think what the occupational career series is part of the Office of Personnel Management's personnel structure, because they have different classifications for job positions that are designated by under the general schedule. So that's where the GS comes from. So an 1103 is an industrial property management specialist. And again, the 1104 being the plant clearance specialist. But I haven't seen anything yet for the other property classifications that relate to agency property. And the thing is, the impact is that if there were a personnel classification for property management related positions on the federal agency side, then I think it would enable agencies to achieve an unmodified audit opinion much quicker than what's happening currently. Yes, there are federal agencies that have that, but there are some that are still struggling. And I think that may be due to agencies not having people that are certified and with the right competencies.
So if there is a occupational career service for federal property management, then there would be requirements from the Office of Personnel Management that says, in order to fill this position, you have to have X, Y, and Z or the equivalent in experience. There'd be some structure for what that role entails.
Right. And I think too that they would have different levels within those career series. So just for example, GS 1103, maybe they have the GS 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13. And then maybe once you go above 13, you're put into more of a supervisory or program management career series, because you may be managing a property program that has all of these federal employees in the property management related occupational series.
And then if there was this career service, then there would be requirements for training and education, perhaps? That's what you're talking about, the different levels. As you got more education and training, you could move up the levels?
Yes, absolutely. And I know, like from a DoD perspective, the Defense Acquisition University, they have various training courses that support the GS 1103 and 1104 career series, so that they can progress up, the scale, so to speak, within that career series.
Are you familiar with any career service listings for facility management?
There is, and I believe it's the GS 1460 series. It's on the OPM website. There's an occupational classifications handbook, and there are many career series that are listed in that. And yes, I did look yesterday, and there is one for facilities professionals as well.
And we have heard that there's approximately 1.5 trillion spent on facilities by the federal government every year, and that there's 1.7 trillion spent on personal property. So there's career service guidance for 1.5 trillion, but there's very little guidance for how to manage 1.7 trillion.
Wow, that's a big number.
Yes.
And I think as a property management professional, we need to do what we can to help further the profession, as well as, help agencies manage property better. And along what comes with that is, the better you are, the quicker that you would most likely get to an unmodified, clean audit opinion on the financial statement audit, because that's where the rubber meets the road. The property, plant, and equipment line is the line item on a balance sheet that property managers should be really looking at. And I think that dollar figure for each agency is probably second to personnel salaries. So it's like the number two thing.
And Steve, we've been talking about this for a while, and you've told me some pretty scary anecdotes. Can you share what you've seen on a regular basis about people who have been promoted to property management?
Well, I've seen, there are many folks that are basically thrown into the property management career, and they're learning as much as they can, as quickly as they can, kind of like, operating through the fire hose. But if we can grow people, from the start, say the young folks coming out of college, to get into this profession, I think there's a lot of things that they can benefit from, and also including, the ISO 55000 certification, which I thought was extremely valuable to me, because it really opened up my aperture, so to speak, being a camera bug. Is that, it's not just personal property. It's real property. It's infrastructure property where you have bridges, dams, roadways, railways, central plants that operate a whole campus, along with, internal use software. Those are the infrastructure is kind of part of the plant, part of PP&E, and internal use software is in there. And then you have the personal property piece. Well, all that combined into PP&E is a big number on the balance sheet.
Well, that's a very high compliment for somebody who's been in property management for I'll just say more than 30 years, Steve. We don't want to.
We'll just say a minute.
Yeah. So for you to say that the training course really helped you open up, that's a perfect segue into asking Lindsay about her experience with the government federal government executives who have been dealing with it, because there is a movement already to be educated and trained in advanced asset management techniques. And Lindsay, will you tell us about some of the federal executives that have taken the course with you?
Well, mostly what we have dealt with have been people like Steve, who are operating at very high level consulting within the federal government. But we have also had a number of mostly officers in the military. I've been asked not to specify which branch, and a lot of really good interest and participation from those folks as well. And what we have found with all of those people, and with people who are senior folks in the ALN who are former government people, they can all see the vision of how ISO 55000 can really assist in getting a handle on the various levels of managing assets. Because when we do the training, we're actually teaching the standard itself. And the standard deals with the strategic and tactical levels primarily, and it doesn't deal with the operational levels. I mean, you'll see mention in 55002 of some key performance indicators like mean time between failures, mean time to repair, but they don't actually may have any requirements related to those things. The requirements in the standard are to understand at a strategic level what you want to accomplish as an organization, and how your assets then can trickle down to support what your organization is accomplishing. And I think in the training, what we found is that's kind of an eye-opener. People have a tendency to kind of look at that and say, oh, I never really thought of that. We've gotten a lot of really positive feedback.
I've heard also, similar to Steve, people who are very experienced saying that they learned a lot through the course. And that ties into what Steve was saying, is that there can be a tiered approach to this. And the Asset Leadership Network is meeting some of the training requirements for leadership, but then there's still plenty of hands-on training for the operational side that people can start with or get later. So
absolutely. So I mean, one of the ones that we tend to mention is the IAM, and NPMA. Both provide some really stellar training at those lower levels. But it's our opinion that even if you're an entry-level person, just understanding the theory of top down and alignment all the way up and down the organization is going to help you do your job better. And an example maybe I could give you is one of the ones that we use in the class. You have a piece of equipment that cost $500,000, and it is getting to the point where it either needs to be replaced or it needs major rehab. But first you need to ask the question, is this piece of equipment still the right piece of equipment to perform the job? And is the job that it's performing still critical to the organization?
Steve,
and that's where that alignment comes in. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. So that talks to the different levels that could be established to structure an occupation service profession. Steve, you wanted to make a comment?
I think, I'm a firm believer of everything is connected. Not really by the little dots behind my background, but really, I think ISO 55000 can be a game changer. The thing that really caught my attention is when we got to leadership and support. The shall statements that requires top management, i.e. the agency director or the company CEO, supporting the asset management system and providing support, whether that be personnel or financial, to the asset management or property management program. Because as we all know, it's not a problem until it's a problem, then it's a really big problem, and I just hate to see us, get to that point. Why don't we kind of build things in instead of getting buy-in sometime down the road? But
Steve, your comment really makes me think about what we're going to be doing with our upcoming infrastructure investment. And Jim Dieter has really made a strong point of saying we can't do it the same way we've done before. Otherwise, we get the same results. And he talks about building in a budget for maintenance, ongoing maintenance, 2 or 3% that has to be by legislation part of it. And your suggestion to establish an occupational career service ties in with that, because you need to have the leaders in place to know how to marshal the will to keep things maintained. We know how to maintain it. That's not the issue. It's marshaling the will for the bridge, the road, the pipes, the gas, electric that goes with it too. It's, complex, but we've got to address it.
And you also have to build into the budget. One of the key things is, and whether it be on the federal side or on the contract side, you got to build in the budget for disposal. You can't just take it out of Hyde all the time. It's got to be budgeted appropriately. And okay, if you don't use all of that funding, but you could probably, use it for something else. But it needs to be there when you're going to dispose of something.
And if there,
So essentially, you have to
and
think
if
about
there's
the
an
entire
occupational
asset
career
life cycle.
service management,
Go ahead,
Sorry, go
Mike.
ahead, Mike.
right? And what I was saying is, career occupational service, then there would be leaders who understand that disposal needs to be part of it.
Yeah,
So,
from a property management standpoint, coming up through the ranks on the contract side, 26 years with Lockheed Martin, you're constantly working with contract managers to get the government COs to recognize that they have to put in budget into the contract so that you can dispose of what they are telling you to do regarding their property. So it's been an age-old issue, but I'm always, a proactive and, optimist, so that we can do this up front and try and mitigate, problems down the road.
so there's a question here that says, yes, the career service requires education. What's happening on the university level to help with education? And Steve, I think you can comment some about that. I know you're in discussions with as an NPMA supporter and a supporter of the Andrew James Advisory Group training. Can you tell us what's happening there?
Sure. I can tell you on two aspects. From a company perspective, everyone on our property management team is encouraged to take training, whether that be through the National Property Management Association, getting the technical government property training, or from a strategic perspective, getting ISO 55000 certification through ALN and the Andrew James Advisory Group. And we were extremely successful on both sides. I believe we had 6 people certified through NPMA, and a large number of folks. I don't know if you want me to.
I want to say 49, Steve.
I want to say 45 because initially it was
That
46.
neighborhood.
Yeah, somewhere in the mid 40s. 40 certified people, and I just think it's an avenue that we can look at things holistically from an LMI perspective, since our mission really is to improve the management of government. And we've got folks.
So what about your activity with Cal Poly? That's what I was asking about.
Oh yeah, Cal Poly, that's near and dear to my heart. I've built a strong relationship with Dr. John Wyatt, who's a professor at Cal Poly Pomona, the College of Business Administration. And his students are in the Society of Law, Contracts, and Property Management. And we just had a symposium on the 20th, Tuesday the 20th, which was widely attended and got a lot of great comments. There were several professionals within MPMA, some of my consulting fellow colleagues presented, and as well as one of Cal Poly's alumni, Miss Sabrina Wynn, who is a LMI employee now and certified A55K professional through ALN, and also through NPMA. So I always call her my first round draft pick. Really a lot of bright folks there in Dr. Wyatt's class. And just as that interaction with the students it's a great feeling. We are trying to give them our knowledge so that they can appreciate the property management profession. And really it's both from the contract side that they're learning about and law, as well as the strategic side through ALN and the A55K certification program.
And Lindsay, I know you, Steve invited you and the Andrew James Advisory Group into the discussions with Cal Poly. What are some of the plans there?
Well, our short-term plan is I'm in the process of putting together a panel discussion. Dr. Wyatt has a summer session planned, and we will have a brief panel discussion about an hour to introduce the students there to the concepts of ISO 55000 and why it can benefit them in their careers, and also why it can benefit their employers, because that's two sides of the coin.
Yes.
So we're working on ways and means of getting this training down at the collegiate level. We're looking at the really dedicated students like the ones in his society for it's law, contracts, and property management. Is that right, Steve?
It's SLCP.
Okay. And these are the best and the brightest among the students there. They are people who can really benefit from something like this additional training that gets them able to make a running start and makes them more attractive to organizations like LMI and other organizations that are doing federal consulting.
Excellent. So you're working together to explore introducing career occupational service in the federal government. You've worked well together in terms of training the supporters of federal agencies, and you're working together to help the universities continue to prepare people. So thank you so much for your efforts in helping to educate and train and prepare professionals who can help manage this $1.7 trillion of federal property better. Thank you.
And I think it's,
yes, Nick.
I think it's our hope. Nick, are you interrupting us?
I was
Go
just,
ahead, Lindsay. Let's let Lindsay and Steve have their final comments, and then we'll go.
Okay, sure.
I think it's our hope that once we get this established at Cal Poly and figure out how to make that work in a university environment, it's our hope that we can extend that to other universities around the country and possibly even around the world. I'd have to brush up on my French before I could teach it in French, though.
Well, Lindsay, I have all the faith in the world in you. The class that I was in that you taught was just totally fabulous.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate that.
Really
You
helped.
were totally fabulous.
And I tell you what, you can't teach an old dog a new trick, you know. I really benefited from it.
I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, Nick?
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to say thanks again to our presenters today, Stephen Holland and Lindsay Ziegler, Mike Bordenaro for putting this together as usual. And then I just wanted to quickly thank ABS Quality Evaluations for sponsoring this month of ALN Thursdays at 4. Learn more about ABS at abs-group.com or abs-qe.com. And then, yeah, thank our other organizational members and patron sponsor Onuma System. And with that, I would just brief plug for next Thursday. We have Chris Lyles, May 6th, and we would love to see you all here and hear from you in comments, questions, and other feedback.
Chris is with the Western Area Power Administration, and he was an asset manager. Now he's a vice president. So he's leading the efforts there. And the Western Area Power Administration has total support from its CEO, Mark Gabriel, who is presented with the ALN. So next week is going to be very interesting. And Steve and Lindsay, we've got one question. It's mainly for Steve, but I think if you've got time, it will initiate discussion with Lindsay too.
Sure.
Okay. Steve, can you share any insight on how LMI A55K certified folks applied their knowledge, whether or not the organization they're advising is specifically interested in ISO 55000 for their organization or not? Can you share some anecdotes about the value that your people have gotten?
Well, I think it has really helped in the way that we communicate during this COVID environment, because we are within the 45 people, we're spread out throughout logistics, and that's in supply chain, infrastructure, energy and environmental, management and advisory services, and maintenance, distribution, and operations. But then too, we have other service lines within the company that we've got folks across all the service lines, and we're communicating so we can address issues and have discussions from an infrastructure perspective, from an IT perspective, from a logistics perspective / supply chain, and it even gets down into the maintenance and distribution and operations of a program or an agency's mission. So we're really looking forward to being able to help federal agencies with developing their strategic asset management plans, because there's a lot of bright folks within LMI that really take it to heart when they are working to help make a difference within a client's organization.
Excellent. And then can I personalize that and ask you personally, since you've taken the training, how have you seen yourself using or working or saying things differently?
Well, one particular thing is when I saw the top management piece, that really drove me to write what I call it a tone at the top memorandum that really drives property accountability throughout the asset management life cycle, supporting the reporting to the financial organization so that the balance sheets can be correct, and really hone in on the training aspects for people and their competencies so that holistically it can drive improvements to an overall property management program. And because the thing is, you have to have the right people with the right property at the right place at the right time in the right condition suitable for use when the mission needs it. And if you don't know what it is or where it's at, you know, it's just not a good thing. And I just think of the ventilators that had to go, for COVID out to California, and the things weren't even, in a usable condition. That makes a property manager cringe. So I think by looking at this holistically from the top down, we can do this together as a team.
So one of the things that ISO 55000 has been heralded as is breaking down silos, and it seems like you're using your training and understanding of that to do that breaking down of silos.
Absolutely.
Lindsay, have you had any feedback from students talking about this is how we used it, or any insights after the fact, perhaps?
Not as much, no. Actually, a lot of I have had a lot of feedback from Steve, and also from Alex at LMA, Alex Barenblatt.
Yes.
Who is he is a phenomenal promoter of ISO 55000 within the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really what got LMI started down this path, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that he's
not a whole lot of after the fact feedback. I probably should do a better job of following up.
Oh no, I was just asking. Since you mentioned Alex, I know that he is applying his training and experience at NASA, which is upping their asset management game.
Right. And another thing too, it has even transponded into discussions with our infrastructure, environmental, and energy folks. There is a talking about climate change and our climate IQ capability. So it's just it's just so mind-boggling that maybe that's the word, that everything is so connected.
And it's rare to have a tool that can help human beings come together on these complex issues. But we are very fortunate to be living at a time when there is this very powerful management system approach that can solve many of the problems that we're facing. And we have evidence from agencies. Western Area Power Administration will be talking next. We're Bonneville Power, Army Corps of Engineers, Air Force, Department of Homeland Security, Department of State. These are all advocating this, and perhaps we can get some support from them related to establishing a occupational career service for property management. So thank you both for your time. We've been getting comments that this is a real important topic, so thank you for being willing to discuss this with us. And if you would like to have any final comments, feel right.
Mike, the one thing as I thought of this, and it's really a passion from a property management profession perspective, is we have to have the right people in the right job with the right competencies. So how do we do that? That's where I thought, hey, we need to get a hold of OPM and work together as a team so we can make a difference.
We're with you on that. Lindsay?
I think this is a fabulous initiative, and we would do everything that we can to help support it, because I kind of draw a parallel to earlier in my career when I was on a technology path and there wasn't really a path. And organizations have done a better job of creating paths for technologists. I think we need a path for asset managers. And I think
Yes.
that path needs to have steps that make sense, that acknowledge individuals' career progression. And part of career progression is going to be the training.
Right. And it can be all the way from a GS5 all the way up to a senior executive who is responsible for the asset management program for the agency, reporting directly to the agency director.
I would love to see that.
Yes.
That's-
So we're willing to support that. Thank you, Steve, for bringing up this topic. And thank you, Lindsay, for joining us. And thank you to all of our attendees for your time and engagement with your questions. And everybody have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.